One characteristic of our modern times is that we tend to be quite self-congratulatory about the progress we have made and how incredibly modern we have become and how we are sort of have convinced ourselves that we really live in the best of times. And perhaps because of that, we tend to be quite arrogant in our assessment of the past and how people in earlier societies, how they have responded to their particular predicaments and how they've solved their specific problems. And as we're now living through this unprecedented, historic global pandemic, and as we've been in self-isolation and in quarantine, what can we possibly learn from the past? What can the past and previous scholars and previous authors and previous artists, what can they really teach us that could be useful for us to assess our own predicament and maybe to think about how we should respond to these very difficult and unprecedented times. So I've been doing some speed dating of books that have been important for my own intellectual formation, for my own research, but also that I've utilized in teaching in the past. And initially I've been very drawn to epics, in particular national epics, because epics are filled with legends and myths that sort of explore the depth of psychology and of the human condition, that include stories of courage and cruelty, of heroism, of tragedy, and really sort of provide you with, in very sort of gripping narrative detail that borders on fantasy, that may or may not be entirely true, but perhaps provide us with sort of sufficient information to sort of grapple with. And the ones that I've been particularly drawn to in this time is, on the one hand, Shahnameh, the Persian Book of Kings, and then the Njal Saga, the Icelandic story about the conversion of Christianity in Iceland and about the Viking Age in Northern Europe. And though these books were written at very different places, though at a very similar time, they have vastly different sort of cultural context, but that they have some similarities about the human condition in terms of what is seen as desirable, what is seen as good, and sort of what are the limits of our human condition. And it's just a reminder of how perhaps we should try to lead our lives. And sort of moving forward in the 20th century, I've been influenced and by national epics that have been written in a fiction form. And I sort of want to bring your attention to two very different yet similar national epics. On the one hand is Naguib Mahfouz's Palace Walk. He was a Nobel Prize winning author from Egypt. On the other hand is Independent People by Halldór Laxness, an Icelandic Nobel Prize winning author. Both of these books are sort of set around the World War I era. Both of them focus in on a particular individual, a male protagonist, who is very determined, on the one hand side, Ahmed here in Egypt and Bjartur Sumurusum in the Icelandic case. And they are living through and trying to adapt to a moment of unprecedented sort of change, modernization, sweeping changes in their own society, in the coming of capitalism and sort of new sort of Western imperialist forces. And both of them maybe respond in very selfish ways and in very hypocritical ways. They demand certain things of others that they do not put for themselves. They are sort of maybe the ultimate story of selfishness, which I think is not the right way to respond to it. So sometimes we can read things that give us examples of what we should not be doing. I've also been sort of thinking a lot about millenarian movements and how people in the past have responded to moments when they really feel that the end was near, and how they responded to whether it was natural signs or political signs or cultural signs of what seemed to be sort of the impending doom. And perhaps the most impactful book that I've come across on that is Norman Cohn's The Pursuit of the Millennium, which was really a groundbreaking book on millenarian movements, apocalyptic movements in Europe. And he looks at sort of what were sort of characteristics of these movements and when they emerged, how they justified their cause, and whether they were peaceful or violent, mostly violent. And maybe one good reminder of all of these movements, that in all of these cases, the people who belonged to such moves that often had sweeping social agendas, sort of demanding new changes in their societies because they felt like the end was near, is that all of their predictions about the impending doom all proved to be false. The end actually never came. And so therefore, what can we learn from such movements is that there's hope that the end didn't necessarily come, but also in terms of how do we utilize such moments when we collectively might feel that the present time is maybe not as great as we imagined it to be. And his book offers a whole host of lessons of how to think about such moments of the past and how to maybe capitalize on this moment to bring out a better reality than the one preceding it. The book that has in particular been very impactful in my field and in my scholarly agenda is The Orientalism by Edward Said. This came out in 1978. And what is maybe interesting for sort of the Williamstown or Williams community is that the cover image of this very influential book is The Snake Charmer by Jerome, which is at the Clark Art Institute here in Williamstown. And this is a brilliant painting, but maybe sort of captures the essence of Said's argument, is that this looks like a setting in a mosque, a religious space. It looks like a very realistic depiction of a mosque somewhere in the Middle East. But when you look at it closely, it is just a figment of the artist's imagination, and that is what sort of the author's main argument is all about. Is sort of critical of knowledge and sort of showing about how there's a close correlation between knowledge and power, and how often we in academia, we present theories as if they are facts. We often represent a past or a reality that may have nothing to do with the actual reality. So it's a reminder of us to be humble in our statements, to utilize evidence-based arguments, to propose our knowledge, and to be mindful how important it is to be respectful in how we talk about others and how we talk about the past, and how we should really ensure that whatever we are writing about and that our scholarship is based on evidence, is based on awareness of who we are and our positionality vis-a-vis the subject material. So these stories, these myths, these examples of human frailty and limitations perhaps will give us hope that we are aware of our own limitations, so that together we can address our current predicament and move forward with new ideas, new solutions, evidence-based reality in order to construct better versions of ourselves in the near and distant future. That is what the past can really tell us. That is what the stories of our predecessors have been telling us all of these years. And so maybe we should revisit those stories in order to be better equipped to deal with our current predicament.